Hey, welcome back. So in this case, we want to make sure the right ones are ticked. So we already have that information right here. We just need to see it. So it's inside the permissions column. So I'm just going to make sure I remove any of these, show this, show that. Okay. Now here, once you save things like this, once you have posted like this, it's always a good idea to refresh the page so that when you refresh, it doesn't ask you to save again. Because right now, if I say save permissions, oops, I wasn't supposed to do that. But anyway, it's fine. I didn't do anything. If I now refresh the page, it will ask me, do you want to resend the data? So I don't want that. So what I need to do is right inside here, I need to do a redirect. So let's redirect. So what are we redirecting to? We're redirecting to the same page again. So this one is admin rows. So redirecting to the same page. That way, if I refresh, I do this, and then try to refresh again, it just refreshes, which is nice. Now let's make it display those correct ones. So I'm going to go to the view. This is rows view. And down here where we're displaying permissions, right through this loop is what we need. So we already have a function called set select, right? So let's use that, set select. Actually, we have set checked, do we? I'm not sure. Let's just confirm, go to functions, and let's do function set. Okay, so we don't have one for checked, which is fine. We have set select, we can just do the same for checked. So let me just duplicate this set select function. Now the reason this won't work is because a checked looks for the word checked, not the word selected. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just that it looks for a different word. So set checked like this. And let's just change the word selected to checked. And that should do. Okay, so back to where we were. Where is that? Rows. So set checked. What we need to give is the key, right? What the key is here. Do we need this though? Anyway, let me simplify things a little bit. Let me just use the inArray function because I don't want us to put things we don't need. So inArray checks to see if something, a certain word is part of the array. So in this case, we want to know if this particular permission is part of the array, and we'll grab that from value. So that permission, whatever is in value, we'll put it here. That's what we're looking for. That's a needle. Where are we looking for it? We're looking for it in row permissions, because this is, remember, this is where we added, this is the permissions. This is an array that we added. Okay, so row permissions. So if in array row permissions, now this means that permissions should always be there, right? Because it's also possible that it's not there. So let's just put some space here and put an if statement. We're just going to say permissions row, and if it does not exist, let's put an empty array. So let me move this down here like so. So what I'm trying to do is avoid an error here in case it doesn't exist. So what I will do is set it here. I'm just going to say row permissions is equal to row permissions to itself. But if it does not exist, then set it to an empty array. That way we always have an array here, because otherwise inArray is going to throw a tantrum and say, this is not an array that you've given me here. So there we go. So if it's in there, this is an if statement. If in array we want to echo something here, okay, and what do we echo? We're going to put a question mark here If it is in the array, let's echo the word checked. If not, let's just, oh, let me put a full colon there. Let's just echo an empty string. So it's that simple. Let me refresh. And there we go. So now the right ones are selected, which means these are the ones we selected. So as you can see, admin has delete categories, edit categories, which is exactly what we will see in the table. Now, the only problem is if I now try to save this, I'm going to have a problem. So let me show you that. If I save that, let's come back here. Let me refresh. You see that now things have doubled. Instead of just updating what we already have, we're adding new rows every time, which is the same thing if I click again. That's exactly what we're, even though we haven't changed anything. So you see here, the rows have become even more. Okay, so let's solve this problem rather quickly. I'm going to go to operations and delete all the data in here. So truncate this table. Be careful which table you're truncating because you delete needed data. So now the table is practically empty. What I would do now is change its structure and add one more column. So we should just say go. This column will be called disabled. This is going to help us limit or avoid that repetition. So length is 1, default value 0, like this, and save. Let's also add a, let me click there again. Let's add an index because we'll be using this to check for things. Okay, good. Now I can save this again. Come back here. Now we have new data. Okay, cool. Now this one is disabled. It's not disabled. Disabled is 0, meaning it's active. So we can only read from those that are active. So what we want to do is every time we save, the first thing we do is disable everything in this table. So we're going to set disabled to 1 for everything here. And then only enable those that were ticked here. That way we avoid repeating ourselves. But then if a record does not exist, let's add a new one. So let's go to our submission here. Where is this? The admin. This is the part where we are saving information, right? So what we can do here, first of all, is to switch off everything, like I said. So before we loop through all of it, let's switch it off. So I'm just going to grab this part right here, copy it, and paste it here. So we're just going to say disable all permissions right there. Okay, before we do anything. So here we're just going to say update permissions map, and then we're going to say set disabled is equal to 1, which means it is disabled. That's true. Where the ID is greater than 0, which means just every row here will be affected. So we don't need this array there. That's great. So once we do that, that's good. We have done our job. But then here we change things a little bit. We read, first of all, if our current item is found, and if it is, we update it. If it's not, we insert a new record. So let's put that here. So this is the insert part. I have the row ID here. So here, let's just say check if record exists. So let's put that there. I'm going to say, I'll call it check is equal to, and then do that query. Of course, what I want is the row ID in this query. So let me put these guys above here because I will be using that. Wait, I actually need both. So let me put all of this above that query. Like so. Okie dokie. So we have these two. That's nice. Now what I want is check, right? So I'll just say select ID This may actually create a problem. Okay, let me go back to the row model here. I just want to check to make sure that this only happens when we read from rows. So I'm just going to duplicate this and say and. So if not empty ID and then not empty row as well, like that. So that we know we only pass through here when it's this particular table that has these two columns that we are reading from. Alrighty then. Okay, so from here, or we could add a different solution. We'll add a different solution later. So check if a record exists. So select ID from permissions map, set disabled is equal to, no, we are not setting anything here. We're just reading from the ID column and we want to know where to read. So this has to have both permission is equal to permission and row ID is equal to row ID. We just want one, so let's say limit 1 and then we check. So I'm just checking here to see if there's an item, for example, that has row ID 2 and also delete categories. If these two things match, then that record already exists. There's no need to add it again. We'll just enable it instead of creating a new record. So that's what we're trying to do here. So I'll just say if check. This means that update and then the else statement, which means insert. Okay, so maybe let me put that there. Then I can move these guys above. Actually, I just need the query in there because either way I need to run the query at the end of the day, so no need to repeat our code. This can remain outside. So just that query. Let me duplicate the query and move it in here like so. So we get a different query depending on what we're doing and then we run that there. But these two guys remain the same, so that's okay. So say instead of insert, this insert remains as it is, but here we can say update. Actually, this might not be right, so, oh wait, maybe it's okay. So we'll say update permissions map, and then we'll say set row ID. Nope, we just want to set the disabled is equal to 0. That's enabling it. And then we do a where clause. Where exactly do we do this? We are doing this exactly here. We don't limit one because there could be several. No, actually, we should limit one because it's one item at a time. So say limit 1 like that. That's fine. Okay, so this should solve our problem entirely. So let's try this again. So we have 5 records here, right? So I'm gonna come back and let me just save exactly what we have and see what happens. Okay, so syntax error, access violation. So it says you have an error in your SQL. So something is wrong. Okay, the reason it's wrong is because permissions has a full colon there. This should only happen if we're actually giving it values here. So there's permission and there's row ID. So why is it complaining? Which is the same thing we have here. So where permission and row. Okay, I'm confused. where is the error? So it's saying near permission. So the moment you see this right at the full colon, it just means it's not recognizing that this is a prepared statements thing. So this is showing us that array is not being received here. What is going on here? Okay, one way to solve this problem is try and echo your query. Usually this solves the problem. And then at the same time, echo your array, then you can make a comparison. So let's put die there and let's refresh again and try this again. Okay, so the fact that it's not happening here means it's on an earlier query, which is this one, or is it? Or this one, the one that checks. So it's the one lacking the array. Okay, so problem solved there. There we go. Let's try this again. Reset. Okay, so column, unknown column ID in list field. Really? ID? Unknown. What is going on? Okay. Unknown column ID. It's like every table has column not found, unknown column ID. In field list. Really? Okay, so where is this problem? Select ID. Okay, this is true. In the permissions map, where are we? Let me click that. This is, no, but there is ID here. What's happening? This is crazy. It's just telling me this is not found. Permissions map. Really? Anyway, let's just put all then. Hopefully we don't get an infinite loop. Okay, so I have another error here. What's going on? Near permissions map, where permission. Okay, I see where the problem is. Let me just undo that. My bad, I didn't put a from there, which is something I should have added. So select ID from. That's why it was confused. Okay, so there was an error in the query after all. So back to basics. Let's come back here. You see everything was disabled. Let me click here, but now it's enabled. So if I just try and save again, at least we've solved one problem. There's no more repeat records. But then let me delete one of these. Let me remove one of these here. Boom, the delete permissions and save. When we come back, we will see that one of them has been removed. It's disabled. Same thing here. If I disable one, maybe let me disable just all except one. If I come back here, you see that all are disabled except one. But the problem is we're still seeing them here, right? And if I save now, they will be saved and enabled here. So the reason is that when we are reading from here, from there, from here, where we say find all, we're just getting everything. So instead, let's replace this with a where clause that looks for disabled, where disabled is 0, so that we only get those that are active. So back here, let me save that. Still we are having problems. So disabled should be 0. Oh, sorry, this is not where I need that. Sorry about that. Let me undo this. Okay, so here we need find all. Where we need this this is in here, in the raw model, where we are reading from. Select permission from permissions map, where that. So right here, we should also add and disabled is equal to 0. Okay. That way we only get the disabled, the enabled ones. So there we go. Things are looking up. So if I try to select these guys and save, you see that it saves. If I go to another page, come back here, you see it has saved the right ones. If I undo these and save, we'll come back here and you'll see similar things. And here, it doesn't add unnecessary data. It just disabled and enables the ones it needs. So this is cool. Only problem now is, wait, what is the problem? Yes, the admin is supposed to just have access to everything, right? So right now what this means is that I can create a new role. Let's say manager, like this, and save. So now we have a new role for manager, and then we can just go through and give manager all the permissions that manager can do and save. And that's it. Then now in the user's profile, where is that? Not user roles, but where are we? In the profile, actually we need a thing for lecturers here. Let me go to edit profile. Okay, so I cannot edit my row here, which is as it should be, but here we should have a users thing. Can't believe we don't have that yet. Okay, anyway, we're going to fix that, no problem. So this is working just fine, but for now I want us to be able to read this data. When we are checking for user can, we should get the data from here, because remember, if I go to functions, let's go to user can function right here. So remember that currently this is how we are getting the information. It's right here. We are not reading from the database. So this should change. We should read from the database. And we have this right there, right? But what are we using this for? Get row. Okay, that's fine. So for us to read from the database, we need to get the DB class. Okay, so we have a DB class there, so we can read. So this information we want to read from the database. So I'm just going to say, I don't know, call this my rows is equal to DB. Let's run a query right there. So to get all rows, we just want the rows for this particular, we want these rows that, we don't want to get all rows from everywhere because that would be too much information. Let's say, for example, we're currently checking what the user can access. We just need to grab what the user can access. That's it, instead of grabbing everything. So what information do we have already here? We have the row of the current user. So let's see how we can use the row name to get what we want. So first of all, we have rows table, which is here. So we can grab this, look for this to grab the ID, and then from there use the permissions map to look for every item with this ID in there. So the query will look something like this. It will get results of the permissions from another query within a query. Sorry. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to write a query, and the query will go something like this. So first of all, the final result is we want to read permissions. So it's going to say select permission. We just want that single column from permissions map, where Okay, so what we're going to have in order to get there is the row ID. So where row ID is equal to, now we're going to have one row ID. So where that row ID is equal to, so we need a subquery here that will have one result. So the row ID we want, because we don't have a row ID here. Remember that the only thing we have is we just know the row of the user, whether it's admin or user, but we don't have the ID of that thing. So we need to grab it from here. So I'm going to just step down here for a second and put a subquery in here, which goes something like select. Now I can't do select all because I just need one column. So I just need the ID. So I'm going to say select ID from rows. Is that a table name? Just to confirm, yes. So I just want the ID from rows where a particular row has that name. So where row is equal to the row, which is this, whatever row the user is at. Now I just want one result. Oh, wait a minute. I don't think I can put limit 1 in a subquery, so I won't put that. Okay, cool. Alrighty then, so select permission. This looks fine. So let me try it. So query, let's put that there. But because we have this one here, we need to add it there. So I'm going to say row. Of course, we're going to grab that and put it here. Okay, good. So now my rows is going to be equal to all the rows that came from there. Now we need to make them into this format of an array, and we know how to do that using array column. So let's go to array column like this. The input is the array, and what column are we looking for? It's column permission. So we just want to grab the permissions and put them in one array, which will equal what we are doing here. So my rows now becomes the array that we want to deal with. Now I only want to do this if my rows is actually a thing. It's an array. That's the only time I want to do this array column thingy. Okay, cool. Now, if it's not an array, then let's set it to an empty array. That way we avoid errors down here. All right, cool. So now here we just want to check if the permission that we are checking for is in this result. If it is, then we are good. So just copy this my rows. So instead of doing rows, which we had created here, this will all go away. We'll just do my rows like that. Oh, we need one more bracket. Then these babies are irrelevant now. All right, cool. So let's see if this is working at all. So back here, let's refresh. Okay. Now let's look at some rows here. What had we had done something with categories, right? So let's come down here to user rows. And currently I am a user. What row do I have? I have user row. So let's do that. So let's say user cannot delete. Actually, with dealing with categories, with anything here, let me just save that. We can view categories. So let me go to categories. Let me try to edit. So I am able to edit. So things are not going as intended. Why is that? Let me just make sure that in the view, where is that view, admin, categories, we do have user can. Okay, cool. Okay, so back to functions. I just want to see what we have here. So let me do show like that. Okay. Oopsie. Let's refresh. Okay, so I can't see anything here. Let me just do die like this for now. So it seems it's not even going that far. Huh. Interesting. So why isn't it? Oh, sorry, my bad. I put return true here. So everything is just returning true. So sorry about that. What is this permission? Okay, there we go. Okay, so for now this should do just fine. So if I refresh, you see I don't have permission now. Let's go to user roles. I don't have permissions there either. Okay, what I'll do is on user roles, let me do return true. Let me set it back here, just so for now we have access. So now I just want to give access to the user for viewing. Let's go to rows. Where is this? Where is the user rows thingy? Just a second. I want to give the user access to this. User can view rows. Okay, so let me just add this to the overall thing. Permissions, and let me just do view, add, edit, delete. Then change permissions to rows. Like that. Okay, good. This way I can set that here. So the user can add rows, edit rows, view rows, and delete rows. So let me save this just to make sure we have that. Let me remove everything else from everything else. Save. Now I want to deal with categories so that you see that it's actually working. So let me come back to functions and user can. Let me remove this return true. Come back and refresh. Okay, so you see that in rows I have access because I've done that there. But let me go to categories. You see I don't have access. So back to user rows, and then let me give myself access, which is view categories, and save. So if I go now to categories, I can view them now. If I try to edit, I can edit. If I try to delete, I can delete. That shouldn't be the case, should it? Let's go back to rows. View categories, edit categories, delete categories. Why is that? Why is this happening? Categories view. Wait a minute. User can edit categories. This is interesting. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry about that. The problem is here. So select from permissions map where that. So let's start with disabled. I forgot about that. So disabled is equal to 0 and let's do that. Okay, so this will solve the problem now. So now if I refresh, go back to categories, I try to add a new one, I can't. I try to edit, I can't. I try to delete, not possible. Unless I give myself the access, let's say add category. Let me save that, come back to categories. Now I can add a category. So you see that it's working now. We can set a user role anytime we want and give them appropriate access. Okay, so let's continue in the next video.